welcome to Two Boomer Women. I'm your host, Agnes Knowles. I've been talking with Boomer women for almost a decade now. Well, I guess I've been talking to Boomer women all my adult life. Reinventing myself several times along the way, though, but always focused on us, Boomer women. With this incarnation of Two Boomer Women, I'll be interviewing other women who have a message of interest for our demographic. If you want to hear about or learn about something specific, let me know and I'll find someone who understands us to talk about it. There's a contact page at twoboomerwomen.com. If you want to be a guest on Two Boomer Women, bring it on. There's an application form at the website too. Finally, this show is all about conversation. We women know its value. We know how to do it, and we must perpetuate the art form. So let's get started with today's show. Welcome to the Two Boomer Women podcast. I'm your host, Agnes Knowles. Midlife seems to come with its shares of highs and lows, and then we women get greeted by peri and post-menopause. Last month, it was our good fortune to have a guest who, as a scientist, really helped us understand our body and what happens as it goes through another set of changes, preparing for this no more baby making stage. I admitted at that time that I often say I was born before hormones were invented because, all in all, I've had a pretty uneventful time of life's changes. My guest today is a nutritional therapist. No matter what our hormones put us through as we age, we really need to make sure we maintain good health, good nutrition, and good energy. If we also have our hormones playing silly bugger with us, it's even more important. In my dictionary, nutrition usually means food. So I'm looking forward to our chat today. Alison Bladh, welcome to the Two Boomer Women podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Agnes. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I'm looking forward to this. Alison, I read your About page, and it seems with your upbringing, you were tailor-made for this career choice. Do you mind sharing your background with our listeners?
Yeah, sure, of course. No, I was very lucky. I was brought up on a farm in the south of England, just outside London in the countryside. So from a very young age, I was, running around with chickens and pigs, and we actually had donkeys as well, out in nature. And my mother was a professional chef. So she had a fantastic vegetable patch, and also we had loads of fruit trees and everything. So, it was all what we now call organic food. But I mean, in those days, we didn't really need organic because we didn't spray our crops with so much pesticides and everything. So, I grew up in that environment, obviously working. When I saw my mother working in the kitchen, I was always in there, watching as soon as I could walk, really. So my love of food came at a very, very, very young age. And it's so wonderful as a child being able to be out in nature and, playing with animals. And it's a great start to life. So I do realize how privileged I was to have that start to life. Yeah.
Yeah. I know my grandson is just 12, and a friend of mine also from the south of England has chickens and a beautiful vegetable garden and stuff like that. He loves being over there. And if he wishes them away on holiday regularly, because then he gets to take care of the domain. It's great. Yeah. So for kids growing up that way, it's amazing. Do you mind starting today by discussing some of the peri and postmenopausal issues women have when they come to you?
Yeah, of course. The menopause, I think, as we women have gathered, isn't a simple subject. There's so many different things that can happen, and we all experience it very differently. But what it is there's different stages. There's your perimenopause, which the average age starts at 45. You can start earlier or a little bit later, but on average it's 45. And that's when you're still menstruating, but your hormones are really on like a roller coaster. They can be all over the place. And this is just because you're starting to go into menopause. And that's when you can start having all the symptoms. And you could reel off this long list of symptoms. I think there's over 40 different symptoms that you can develop. But the most common ones that we all know is like your hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, skin dryness. All those things can happen when you get into perimenopause, and that's due to the fluctuation in all these hormones. They go a bit crazy in perimenopause. So the type of women that come to me are women that have really suddenly just, a lot of women in perimenopause, they're maybe got a career, they've got children at home, the parents are maybe slightly older, so they need more caring for. And then on top of that, they suddenly develop all these symptoms, and it can become overwhelming for them. So what I do with my clients is, we really sit down and think, okay, let's have a look at your lifestyle. Let's have a look at your eating and just get you back on track. So you're going to feel better, because there is so much you can do naturally. It's not just food, it's the lifestyle part as well that's really crucial in menopause. Just being nice to yourself, really, and understanding that it's not a disease. This is a process that every woman will go through. We can't get away from it. So it's embracing it more and just being kind to yourself. And then as you get into menopause, which is the average age is 51, what menopause basically means is that you haven't had a period for 12 months. So when you haven't had a period for 12 months, you are then in menopause. And then all the years after that are your post-menopausal years. So that is when you don't produce any more eggs, you don't have periods anymore, you can't have babies. And we live much longer now. So majority of women will live 30 years of post-menopausal life. So it's really important that we make the most of it and have fun and get our health, to peak condition.
I just recently interviewed a woman who suggests we may be living to like 120 now.
Oh, gosh.
on a go forward basis. So that's a lot of years of postmenopause. Now, midlife is also a time when things like type 2 diabetes, chronic fatigue, general malaise show up. Can those be related to menopause, or is it just part of aging?
It's actually both. I mean, the estrogen and progesterone are real key players in hormone health. And as we all know, as we go into menopause and post-menopause, your ovaries don't produce estrogen anymore. And that can have an effect. We have estrogen receptors all over our body. So that really can have an effect on many different things, like insulin sensitivity. I think insulin is a hormone that your body secretes when you eat carbohydrates, like your sugary type foods. And insulin is really important because it's like the key. It kind of opens up the cell so the glucose, the energy that we've eaten, can get inside. But what can happen is when your estrogen levels decline, your cell doesn't become as sensitive to this insulin. So the glucose stays in the bloodstream, and this can lead to higher blood sugar levels and what we call insulin resistance, which is the stage before you would develop diabetes too. So insulin is a really big player. You have to look after your bone health when you go into menopause, because of the beneficial effects that estrogen has on bone health. Your risks of developing osteoporosis goes up as a woman. Heart health, heart disease, goes up as well. And estrogen is playing a role. I'm not saying it's the main reason for this, but it's one of the reasons, that you have to look after these areas more. And of course, we can't blame it all on menopause. It is the natural aging process as well. But bone health, heart health, watching your weight, because that can really lead to, insulin resistance. And we tend to find we put weight on around the belly area as we get older as women. And that is due to metabolic changes and hormone decline. So it's really just being aware of these things and looking after yourself just a little bit better than you did. When you're younger, you can get away with it. But as we get older, we can't really. You need to take better care of yourself.
I think what I'm appreciating about some of these talks is the fact that I think we really need to understand that our body is, for lack of a better term, a machine, and we need to take care of all the moving parts, keep it like lubricated and like all the stuff that you think about with a motor, your car engine. And I mean, we certainly take our cars in for, tune-ups and servicing every 6 months, and we really need to pay attention to our bodies and keep them working well. Now, on your nutritional therapy page, you talk about nutritional balance and imbalance. How do you determine how balanced our balance really is?
Yeah, great question. I love the word balance, because that's what I'm really trying to achieve with my clients, is to just get that balance right. And balance, I mean, it's very individual depending on the client and the person, but it's really just balancing what you eat, balancing your lifestyle, looking at like your gut health, making sure that you've got a good balance of what we call our microbiome, which is our gut bacteria, which is a fascinating subject. There's lots and lots of research now on the microbiome and how, that is so related to how we feel, to mood, to brain health. It's like your gut bacteria, basically. And we want that in balance. We want the good bugs to be more than the bad bugs. Otherwise, the balance can tip. And that can really lead to gut issues, meaning that you maybe don't absorb all the nutrients that you need, all the vitamins and minerals. There's something called leaky gut, which basically means the lining of your gut is compromised. And that's when you can get food particles and things going into the bloodstream. And that can really lead to inflammation and chronic diseases. So it's really just getting the balance right between nothing crazy, because we all want to live a life, and I'm realistic, you can't be too strict, but having a healthy eating plan and also lifestyle things like adding in exercise and self-care, like maybe doing meditation or yoga or just going out for a walk for 10 minutes a day. I think we women, as we get older, need to prioritize ourselves a little bit more and realize that it is actually okay to look after yourself. I think we feel guilty, don't we, sometimes, that, I should be doing that, or I should be doing this, I should be looking after. We're carers, aren't we, women? But it's really okay to say no and say, no, I'm going for a walk, or no, I'm doing this. I find myself that I've become way better at saying no to things. Now I've got older.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I think we're also out of practice. I mean, we spent all those years as parents, and then, often as active daughters, as our parents age and that sort of thing. So as you say, yeah, our own needs and health and everything else just slides onto the back burner. And now is the time when it's even more important to really reclaim that, or just maybe to claim it, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm not going to go into specifics too often, but you were talking about gut health. Is that where probiotics come in? Like, is that part of your bailiwick?
Yeah, probiotics, that's what they are. They're foods that you can eat. Well, you can actually take it in supplement form as well, but it's always better to get it from real food. And they're the type of, like, the fermented foods. So they're the foods that have the live bacteria in, because what we want to do in our gut is give it that nice, lovely, good, healthy bacteria. And that's in foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, all of those fermented vegetables. And kombucha is actually something that you drink. That's a fermented drink. But all those sort of things have probiotics. So that's your good bacteria. And then there is something called prebiotics. And the difference is that prebiotics is the food that the bacteria likes, because it's a bit like a garden. You have to feed it to keep it happy. And the prebiotics, asparagus is a good example. That your bugs in your stomach love asparagus, and like beans, all the different sorts of beans and green leafy vegetables. And so it's really just feeding it with the bacteria, the probiotics, and then feeding the bacteria with the prebiotics to keep your gut happy.
It's funny how it can sound complicated, but so often if I talk to anybody who talks food, there's a lot of really basic things you can do, and they're not way out there, like beans, sauerkraut, like all those things that you can fairly easily make them part of your day-to-day lifestyle.
Absolutely. I actually make my own sauerkraut. And it's really simple to do. Really, really simple. I've got a very simple recipe actually on my website. It's you just, all you need is a big cabbage and a little bit of salt. That's it. It's so simple to make. It can be a bit smelly because you have to it ferments and you have to let the gas out every day in the kitchen. So it can be a bit smelly, but it's worth it.
I will be honest, I love sauerkraut. I rarely buy it because as soon as I've got sauerkraut in my fridge, I think, ooh, a smoky with fried onions and sauerkraut would taste so good. And of course, those sausages aren't necessarily very good for you. Alison, this might be a good time to mention that you also remind your readers, and in this case, our listeners, that nutritional therapy runs alongside professional medical guidance. It's not an instead of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm not a doctor. I work very closely alongside doctors with my clients. So it's not replacing any sort of medical information. It's a holistic therapy that runs alongside medical advice.
Right. Now, I'm going to go briefly back to balance, imbalance. So it's intake, output, then I guess environmental factors too, like whether it's stress or big cities, maybe. Does that sort of pollution come into it as well? And
yeah, lifestyle and input from how we live is a huge player, and the society and our environment isn't what there's more and more pollution, that we use more chemicals in all areas of our lives, from down to what we put on our skin, products, and even the foods that we eat have been sprayed and processed. So we're getting it from all angles, really, and that can really disrupt your hormones, amongst other things. So I understand it's not realistic to it's impossible to avoid all these environmental toxins, but if possible, try to buy organic food. I know it's not easy and it can be more expensive, but even if you just, buy certain types of foods, because there is, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's something called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. And it's a list of foods that I always try to say to my clients, if you're only going to buy these foods, then just buy them, from these lists, the organic, because they're the ones that are sprayed the most. Like peppers, bell peppers are on the Dirty Dozen. So you can always do that. And then thinking about what you actually use, like cleaning products as well in the house, all of these things build up into our toxic load in our bodies. And they do have a detrimental effect on our health in all aspects, all ways of life. And then you mentioned good old stress. Yeah, stress. I mean, I know people are sick of talking about stress, but when you understand like the biochemical processes that happen in your body when you're really stressed, it's not good for anybody. But I always say to my clients, if there's two things that you want to do for your menopausal health, is one is manage stress, and the other one is blood sugar control. But if we go back to the stress, it's basically when you're very stressed, you release stress hormones, cortisol being one of them. And this puts you in the anxiety mode. You're stressed, you want to run away from something. And your body prioritizes making cortisol. You have these two little glands that sit on the top of your kidneys, which are called your adrenal glands. And they produce cortisol. So when you're stressed, they're producing this cortisol. However, they also produce a very small amount of estrogen and progesterone when we're in post-menopause. And that's just a little, enough of this hormone to keep us healthy through these years, because we still need estrogen in our bodies. But when you're constantly stressed, chronic stress, which many people are today in society, your body prioritizes cortisol. So estrogen and progesterone gets put on the back burner and it won't be produced. So you will be feeling even worse because you won't be producing these small amount of hormones. And that's just one explanation, but there's many other things that happen in your body with stress. Blood sugar levels go up, you crave more sugary foods, you can put weight on. So really learning to manage your stress in an easy way that you can do without having to, suddenly do an hour's yoga or an hour's meditation. Deep breathing is fantastic for stress. Just taking a few deep breaths when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious can really help.
I'll vouch for that, because I know sometimes, you're stuck in traffic, you're going to be late for an appointment, realizing there is nothing you can do about it. So a couple of really deep breaths and full exhalations, and it's just like, you control what you can control, and you can't control this right now, so let it go.
Yeah, it actually resets your nervous system. It's very hard to be stressed when you're breathing deeply, because it's giving a signal to your body that everything's fine. I'm relaxed. Everything's okay. So you kind of stop the stress response when you breathe very deeply like that. So it's actually a very good habit to put in place when you're feeling stressed.
And earlier you mentioned even getting out in nature. And I think between pets and nature, like just to get out each day somewhere, and I don't know, you don't necessarily have to hug a tree, but it does just, you can feel that sort of bringing everything down. Your shoulders come down a little bit and you relax a wee bit.
Yeah. No, I love, even if it's just for 10 minutes, just walking out for 10 minutes and getting some fresh air. And that is actually shown in studies to nature has such a beneficial effect on us. It releases all like the happy hormones.
Yeah, I've heard now about forest bathing. So you just go out and you drink it all in, I guess, which is nice. Yeah, surround yourself. The first words I saw on your website were "get your sparkle back." Explain sparkle, please.
Yeah, sparkle. That's really I like a bit of sparkle, and it was just so me, that expression. And I really, I'm so passionate about helping menopausal women, and I saw so many ladies that what I would say had lost their sparkle, lost that zest for life, the little glint in your eye, and that little smile had gone away because of so much going on and stress and being overwhelmed. So I really thought, right, okay, I'm going to get these women's sparkle back. I'm going to get them their love and zest for life back through support as well. Support's a huge thing, but just changing a few little things in their life, and also giving them the confidence. I think as we age sometimes, and again because of the hormone changes, we can lose our self-confidence. We start questioning ourselves and, think, oh, what have I done with my life? And, oh, I should have done this. And, so it's just saying, you are fantastic. You are amazing. And just go out there and sparkle.
Yeah, making somebody sit down and make a list of all the things they can do and they've done. And it's like, okay, how can you be so hard on yourself? You may not have done a few things that you thought maybe you should be doing, but you've done so much, you've accomplished so much that, yeah, it's great. Yeah. I just love the word. That's why I wanted you to explain your use to it.
No, I do. I love that, because I like to say I'm quite girly, really. I like a bit of sparkle.
Yeah. And hopefully everybody knows what you mean when you say that. Oh, that's great. Okay. I'm going to go down the other end of the spectrum now. Weight gain. And COVID hasn't helped. I have friends who talk about gaining the COVID-19. Why is it so difficult to lose weight as we get older?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And I totally agree with you that the pandemic has not helped matters, because, it's been awful for people, hasn't it? And being locked inside, and, food is also a comfort. So when there isn't anything else and you're feeling really down, you do tend to reach for more comforting foods, processed foods that you maybe aren't the healthiest of choices. Weight gain, yeah, that again leads back to the good old stress. There's many factors that come into place here when we're talking about menopause and weight gain. Stress is a big player in this, because the hormone cortisol that we spoke about earlier, the stress hormone, when that's released, is what we actually call a fat storing hormone. So it's virtually impossible to lose weight if you've got chronic stress. because your body will not burn fat. The cortisol in your blood is telling your body that it needs energy because we're being chased by, this stress response is from, our ancestors when we were being chased across the tundra by a tiger. And now we've just got the stress from everyday life. But the cortisol in our blood is telling us, right, we need energy, you need to run away. So it also makes you crave things, sugary things, so it can make you eat more. Lack of estrogen, another thing with weight gain, has an effect on what we call our hunger hormones. There's two hunger hormones called ghrelin and leptin. And also estrogen has been shown in studies to have a controlling effect on appetite. So, you can think as the levels go down, you all of a sudden can become more hungry. You haven't really got that stop button there anymore. And it's the same with the hunger hormones, that they can become imbalanced. Ghrelin is what tells our system to eat. The typical growling in the stomach, that's your ghrelin saying, I need some fuel now, let's eat something. And leptin is a hormone that's released when you've eaten, telling your body that, you can stop eating now, I'm satisfied. So when these become imbalanced with going into post-menopause, you can lose that control. So you can actually eat more and not have the leptin saying, it's okay now, we've eaten enough, you can stop eating. And then sleep is a huge issue with weight gain, finding it hard to sleep. And that just plays havoc with everything, including weight loss, because your body finds it very hard to lose weight when you're in a sleep deprivation. And again, you will crave sugar because your body needs energy because you're so tired. And blood sugar levels, going back to the insulin that we spoke about earlier. Good old insulin is also a fat storing hormone. And this, again, when you're eating sugary foods and the wrong type of foods, and you've got higher levels of sugar in your blood, the insulin won't be working as it should, or your body maybe isn't quite as sensitive to as it should, and you will store fat. And that's that typical belly abdominal fat that we get as women. We go from more of a pear shape to an apple shape as we get older. And that's also, there's other factors that come into that. So a lot of the time women, because your belly area increases, you don't necessarily always weigh anymore. It's just that you feel that you've put weight on because all of a sudden your trousers and everything feel tighter because you've had a bit of a shift in body fat. And another interesting fact with hormones and weight gain is that our fat that you store around the abdomen is a hormone fat. So that this fatty area can actually store estrogen. So when your body detects that there's not enough estrogen, your adrenal glands aren't producing enough estrogen, it can happen that you will store this even more so around the abdominal area as a bit of a backup. Your body's very clever. It's very, very clever. I mean, we were meant to store fat for survival. It's just in this society, in the food environment, we're just told there's food everywhere, isn't there? You can't get away from it. Whereas our ancestors, had to go out. They were hunters and gatherers and didn't know when they were going to get their next meal. So your body's clever. It's not easy to lose fat. Your body doesn't want to lose fat. It needs it there for a backup fuel source.
It's interesting too, as we do live longer, like just realizing that that's more pressure on joints and like so many of the systems, that if we were just living to 55, 65, somewhere in there, like to have 5-10 years of some fat wouldn't be as big of a deal. But now that we're looking at another 40, possibly 50 years, that becomes yet another issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quality of life, isn't it? You don't want to be restricted in what you do because you're slightly overweight. You want to feel fit and healthy and vibrant, so you can go for a walk and you can do the things that you want to do. But it's very true what you said, Agnes, that it's also bone, your bone health you really have to look after, and also your heart health, which, the risk of heart disease and stroke goes up as we get older as women. So, thinking about what you eat and avoiding all those processed, sugary, refined foods is really beneficial for bone health and for heart health.
The one thing I often point out or mention because my audience is boomers is, in terms of being strong and fit and all of that area, we've got grandchildren, and I know a bunch of people now who are getting to that stage where they have great grandchildren, and you want to be able to pick them up. You want to be able to feel safe holding them. And, like if you really let things go downhill, you miss that opportunity and the joy.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? That's just so wonderful for everybody, and for the the grandchildren. It's that's really, really important. So a key thing to bone health and also keeping your muscles is strength training. It's great to go walking, absolutely, to do more the aerobic activities, but doing some sort of strength training where you're actually like lifting something is crucial to keep your bones and also your muscles, because our muscles as women tend to fade a bit as we get older, and we really need to keep them up because they're also very good for metabolic health, and that they crave more energy muscles. So you will actually burn more calories if just through living, if you have more muscular body than you would if you'll have more fat.
On occasion I mention, and I'll do it here, that I still lead a seniors exercise class. And these women are range in age from about 70 through to 95. And of course, we've just had 2 years off. We've just been back for a couple of weeks. And the first thing these women are saying is like, who's got the weights? Because we had a bin of weights. Where are the TheraBands? We need the resistance training. So it's really interesting that, even into their 90s, it's important to them to maintain some lifestyle that keeps them moving and going and still out and about.
That's fabulous. I love that. It's wonderful. Yeah. Just lift something. You don't even have to go to a gym. You could just have something at home, like a dumbbell at home, and just lift that. I'm not saying you need to go and do an hour's workout with heavy weights. Just lifting something's really, really important. But that's great that you do that. Well done.
And even just talking about, lifting at home, good heavens, open a cupboard door in the kitchen. There's a 2-pound bag of something, or there's a 10-pound bag of potatoes. Obviously you start carefully and you be careful, but it's so easy to do at home. Okay, so we have a bunch of listeners out there who are quite excited to get started. What's the first thing they do today?
Right. Okay. If we talk about nutrition first, like what you should be like thinking about, what you should be eating. What I'd like to say, because this gives you a good idea of what you should be eating, it's more of what we call a Mediterranean style diet. And people say, well, what does that actually mean? Because it means different things for different people. But it's really lots of fruit and vegetables. You want to eat a rainbow. The more colours that you can get in your diet, the better, because they're so rich in all these wonderful phytonutrients and antioxidants that we need for our overall health. So lots of fruit and vegetables. You can actually use frozen vegetables as well. If not available to always buy fresh produce, there's no problem in using frozen vegetables and fruit. Lots of fatty fish, like oily fish, but roughly twice a week, like your salmon, mackerel, herring, all those things, sardines. Nuts and seeds, preferably not like dry roasted with lots of salt on, but just normal nuts and seeds. And then poultry, so white meat, but red in a classic Mediterranean diet, they don't really eat very much red meat. Very occasionally you would eat red meat, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with eating red meat, but it's all in moderation. And lots of beans and legumes and peas and all those wonderful things. So basing your food on really that and whole grains, getting rid of the unnutritious food, the food that really isn't giving your body any nourishment. And that is, in today's society, it's all the processed foods. It's what we call the standard American diet, the SAD diet, where it's just loaded with sugar. And if you look on the back of a package, do you really want to eat something that's got like 30 different ingredients in that you can't even pronounce? And they're very clever, because sugar, I think I was reading some study, they were saying that sugar has 56 different names for sugar that they use on packaging just to confuse you. So if possible, don't buy packaged food, just buy whole food and cook from scratch. Doesn't have to be complicated. You can just have like roasted chicken and have a salad. Have a piece of fish, have some nice vegetables with it. It really doesn't have to take hours. So that's like the Mediterranean style diet. And then what you want to think with your coming into post-menopause is to really foods, for your bone health. So the calcium rich foods, and they're like your green leafy vegetables. Sardines are great for calcium, and broccoli and salmon and dairy products. Vitamin D is also very important because that works alongside calcium. So you really want to make sure that you've got enough vitamin D. Vitamin D can be quite tricky because it's difficult to get what you need through food. So it can be sometimes that you do need to take supplements of vitamin D. I know where I live, where it's very dark in the winters in Northern Europe, that even the authorities here, that the government say that people should take vitamin D, because we've seen now with the pandemic that there's so much research done on how vitamin D benefits the immune system and so many other things. And then heart health, that's all, again, your nuts and seeds, omega-3 oils are wonderful for heart health. So that's like your fatty fish. When you look at research and studies for a diet, it's all about variation, and it's all about slightly more plant-based, but all about variation, just trying to eat as many different types of vegetables. I sometimes have challenges with my clients to say, see if you can eat 30 different plant-based foods in a week. And it actually sounds a lot, but it isn't when you think about it. It's actually quite easy to do. So avoiding your processed foods. And then another very simple thing to do is drink water. We always think, oh yeah, drink water, that's what everybody says, but do we really drink enough water every day? It's difficult to say exactly how much, because it depends on how active you are, etc. But roughly around 8 glasses of water a day. Avoiding all the fizzy drinks and energy drinks. They're just laden with sugar. If you find water's maybe a bit boring, you can always I think it's quite nice to put like a frozen fruit, like a frozen strawberry or something in it, or have some sparkling water just to make it slightly a bit more exciting. Avoid alcohol. That is something that majority of women find as they get into the menopausal years, that they just can't drink alcohol like they used to. It sets off all their symptoms, and it just basically doesn't make you feel very good. And I know many women in menopause that have actually given up drinking alcohol completely because they just don't like the way that it makes them feel. And I'm not saying you have to give up. I'm just saying maybe in moderation. Try, if you're having a glass of wine in the evenings, that can really affect your sleep. It can affect your blood sugar levels, and it can set off hot flushes and other symptoms. So don't do it for a few days and see if you feel any better. Yeah, so that's really the diet thing. And then the lifestyle is, like we were talking about, getting out and doing some exercise. Even if it's just for 10 minutes, just moving, doing something that really suits you and you enjoy doing, that you can do every day. Smoking, I used to say that a lot, but it feels that you don't really have to say that so much anymore. I don't think there are that many people that smoke anymore, but, we all know that smoking isn't good for you. So that is something that I would say, try and give up if you can. Stress reduction, huge thing, as we've spoken about. That really is a big thing to really get control of your stress levels through prioritizing yourself basically and doing self-care, even if it's just sitting down, doing some breathing, or just sitting down with a cup of tea and staring out the window, just having that time for yourself every day where you can just switch off, putting yourself first. And I think what I always like to say is that the to-do list that we've all got is actually never going to be done. You know, that to-do list just goes on and on and on. So if you're waiting for that list to be completed, it's never going to happen. So allow yourself to prioritize yourself. I put time into my agenda actually for self-care, like to exercise and such. And I think if you schedule it in, you're more likely to do it, because you can't say, oh, I haven't got enough time, because it's actually in your agenda. Stress and then sleep, as we said, sleep is crucial for overall health. Another key thing is portion control. You know, we were talking about weight gain earlier, that you can't really eat as much as you did when you were younger. And that's just to do with the fact that your metabolism and everything slows down. So really just be more mindful of how much food you actually have on your plate. When you think of your plate, try to have, you know, roughly a palm size of protein, because protein is really important for keeping your muscles happy, and it's needed for building all cells in the body. So it's crucial, protein, and is a big player in blood sugar balance. So protein we like. And then have your like veggies. So fill up virtually half your plate with non-starchy vegetables. And that's more like green leafy vegetables like kale, broccoli, you know, green beans, all those things. You can have starchy vegetables, but in moderation. And they're more like your sweet potatoes, whole grains and rice, etc. And then your fats. Don't forget your healthy fats. I think fats, the word fat, everyone just automatically, you think, oh, fat, I don't want fat. But you really need fats for your body to function properly. And also in hormone production, you need fat. And that, avocados, I'm a huge fan of avocados, wonderful fats in avocados, olive oils, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, coconut oil, butter. Pure butter is great. In moderation, of course, but you really should eat fat, a little bit of fat with every meal to get that balanced plate. And then one thing that I think that in today's society that we do too much of is that we are constantly eating. I say it's like we're grazing all the time, and we never give our body chance to, our digestive system chance to rest. And your digestion needs time to rest. And it's actually coming out again in research now that you've probably heard of intermittent fasting and time restricted eating, but you don't need to go to those lengths. It's just, do I really need to have a snack now? Am I actually hungry? And, maybe trying to finish your evening meal slightly earlier and then not eating anything until you have breakfast at 7, 8 or whenever you eat breakfast, just so your body can rest. We weren't designed to be constantly eating all the time. Your body and gut and digestive system is much happier if you eat, but not all the time.
Just on that last point, I know for myself, it's, because I do try to be conscientious. I love being hungry because it's like, good, like my body's now at the stage where it's saying, maybe think about feeding me again, whereas instead of just, it's noon, I must be eating food. You just really listen to your body a little bit more. This talk is probably coming at a really good time too, because we're in spring, which the one upside, I guess, one of the few upsides of COVID is the fact that so many people have planted a garden. So you can really start, really thinking about what you want to plant so that you've got, homegrown, organic, lovely vegetables that are really good for all of your health come summer and into the fall.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's just that goes back to my childhood. I think I grow on my balcony where I live. I'm quite good at growing cucumbers for some reason. They seem to flourish, and chili peppers and tomatoes and everything. But I mean, to have space to have a real vegetable garden must be fantastic. Well, wonderful. Those fresh products, there's just nothing better, really.
Yeah, that's it's so nice to have. Just a personal question here. Where do we find out about this dirty dozen? I hadn't heard of it. And now you've mentioned bell peppers and you've mentioned eating a rainbow. And I mean, I must admit, peppers, I love yellow, red, orange peppers. But if they're one of the dirty
Yeah,
dozen.
sure. I can send you some links if you'd like, so you can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a list of these products, and it's quite. I've always got it on my fridge, so I know when I go shopping, because it does actually change every year or so. It's not always the same. It depends on, that there's a lot of research that they do into what's being sprayed more and more. But I can send you the links to that if people want to look at it, because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. Yeah, and I would put them in the show notes for sure. Okay, I'm going to go slightly sideways here. Your bio also says you are a beauty therapist. Now, I should probably have done this interview without a camera, but just explain briefly what you do there.
Yeah, I started my career. I've worked in the health and wellness industry for over 30 years. And I started my career as what we call an esthetician, a beauty therapist. And I worked on women's health, and I worked with ladies during perimenopause and menopause that were suffering from skin problems, because that, again, is an area where you can suddenly develop acne, you can develop pigmentation, your skin can become really sensitive and dry, and there's a whole list of things that can happen to your skin. So I really concentrated on that area. So, from the outside, and during my path working on the skin, it was so obvious that you needed to work from the inside as well. It's kind of both areas. And that's when I went back to university and trained to be a nutritional therapist. So it's brilliant, because it's like it's the inside and the outside that I've got now. But I predominantly now at the moment have become so busy with my nutritional therapy that I work with that. I do lecture at a private college in Stockholm on advanced skincare treatments when they need me there. But I do focus on nutrition now. But a lot of my clients that I get come to me as well, because they want that skin side. They want both sides as well. But yeah, that it just all fits together so well, really.
I'm just thinking it's sort of like body look out, because I'm coming at you from the inside and the outside.
Yeah, there's no escape.
Yeah, right. Now, you do actually have a couple of programs too.
Yeah. I have on my services, I have, going back to your sparkle, get your sparkle back program. I work on, we all need support if we're changing our habits and nutrition and lifestyle. So I have a 30-day program. I have a 60-day program, depending on how much support you need. And that's where we really sit down and get to the root causes of the problems. I work with the functional medicine model, where it's a model where you look at every part of the body, and you actually go back, you do a timeline. So you really go back to your childhood and look at everything, and really try to understand, an example, we say someone was suffering from migraines. You'd really want to understand, why is that happening? Not, just putting a plaster on it and hoping it will go away, really getting to the root cause of that. Sometimes I use testing, like functional testing, which depending on what the client's problem is. And then we have, once we've done the initial consultation, I've got all the information. We then put a wonderful health plan together, specifically individually for that person. And then we put that in place. And I talk to my clients once a week over Zoom, just chatting, seeing how it's going, giving them support, maybe just asking them, okay, well, let's put this in place now. So taking it slowly, small steps, to give them the help that they need, because support is a huge thing. It's very difficult to change habits that we've had, especially with food. It's easy, you're very motivated in the beginning, but when you've maybe been on the program for 4 weeks or something, you see these little habits slipping back in. So you need someone like me there to, say, no, let's carry on, stop doing that.
So is this available online then?
Yeah, absolutely. I do at the moment. I'm doing all my consultations and everything online. So if you just go to my service page on my website, what I like to do with clients first is to talk to you, have what we call a discovery call first. It's a free chat for 20 minutes to really see what, if I can help you, because health is a huge area, and maybe I don't specialize in that particular problem this client's got, and then I would refer you on to somebody else. So it's really having that time to explain what you want and what you need, and seeing if we can work together. And when we've done that, we then can book in the package together and work together very individually on that. So to regain your sparkle.
Or boost your sparkle. I saw the two of them there.
Sparkle, yeah, even better.
Oh, that's great. Now, I'm also going to mention, because I downloaded your free 7-day no fuss meal plan. And I would encourage everybody to go there, because it's got so much good information, as well as meal plans and recipes. I was going through those recipes going like, ooh. So that's amazing. Okay, so you're an English woman living in Sweden. May I ask you a personal question?
Absolutely.
Okay, only because you mentioned it in your Podmatch bio. You fell for the charms of a Viking man. Where did you meet a Viking man?
I know, that's it. I am British. I'm from London, now living outside Stockholm. I met my now husband in a wine bar in London one sunny day. I couldn't resist the charms of a Viking, and the rest is history, really.
That's great. So maybe our listeners, we can meet a Viking when we get our sparkle back.
They can. They are quite charming, actually, the Vikings. They're quite hard to resist.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that. I was going to pinpoint a couple of other nationalities, but I thought, no, then I'm playing favorites and I won't do that.
I have to say that, don't I, in case my husband listens to this podcast.
Yeah, right. Oh dear. And you're blonde, so you're tailor-made, so.
And now most people think that I am actually Swedish,
yeah.
to be honest. I don't, they do very well, yeah.
Oh, let's go. Alison, before we wrap, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think midlife/boomer women should think about or implement?
One thing that I think is important to finish on is to say that it's not all bad, because you talk about all the now we've spoken about bone health and heart health, and you start thinking, oh God, is there anything that isn't negative? And it should be a wonderful time of life, and it isn't all bad. There are many positive things. For one, that you don't have periods anymore. That's a positive relief. You don't have to worry about exactly. You don't have to worry about getting pregnant. And it's also, a lot of women suffer from hormonal headaches, PMS, none of that anymore. Because when you come into post-menopause, your symptoms gradually fade. There are some women that have more problems with it, but in general, they just fade off gradually. And you start feeling great. And I think it's a time in life where you have more time for yourself, and you can spend more time, and you can do things, crazy things that you want to do. Prioritize yourself and push yourself out of your comfort zone and go and do those things like jumping out of an aeroplane or whatever pushes your buttons. Go and do that, and don't have any regrets. So, I think we should celebrate this time in women's lives. And we're so wise and we're so knowledgeable when we get into post-menopause. The things and the experiences in life. It's a wonderful period. It's just, you just need to look after yourself a little bit better.
Well, and earlier you mentioned, do away with that to-do list. And I know my own mother, as she got into her mid and late 80s, she'd say, well, I can't do everything on my to-do list, because then, there's no point in getting up in the morning. So she always made sure there was things, left undone. It was
great. I think grandmothers are amazing. And I talk about my grandmother so much now. I say, I really wish, she was here. There's so many things I would ask her now. When you're a kid, she was quite strict, my grandmother, and I was not scared of her, but she, she was very like strict British.
I had one of those.
But I think I'd love to just sit down with her now. And I think some of the things she used to eat was so healthy. It's just fascinating. Really is. I think grandmothers should be celebrated.
Works for me. Can I call the grandchildren in and you can repeat that?
Absolutely.
Okay, where do we find you online?
Yeah, the best place, the easiest place to find me is at my website, which is www.alisonbladh.com. And I am very active on social media. My Instagram is at Alison Bladh. And I have a wonderful Twitter account called the Pink Tea Room, which is it's like a hub for women. And we just talk about all women things and hormones and it's great. So they're the places to find me. And like you said, Agnes, I've got some nice downloads on my website as well with meal plans and recipes and everything.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and as always, all the links will be in the show notes. And listeners, check the show notes because Alison's last name is, you need to think about how you're spelling it. Let's put it that way. Okay. Listeners, if you have comments on today's show, you can leave them where you're listening, or we can be found at Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, most places a person would listen to podcasts. Of course, there's always the website, twoboomerwomen.com. To leave your comments, click the Join the Conversation tab. Leave stars and reviews. They help us grow. And hit the subscribe or follow button before you go, and then you'll be notified about future interviews with more of my great guests. And share this episode with two friends who want or need to regain or boost their sparkle. And then definitely go download Alison's meal plan. Seriously, it was so good. If you want to be a guest on the podcast or know someone who would, there's an application form at the website too. Alison Bladh, thank you so much for being my guest today and sharing so much great information. My goodness.
Oh, thank you. It's so lovely to chat to you. I could carry on for hours. Thank you so much for having me.
No, that's great. I appreciate it. Maybe we can get you back then.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Sparkle with Alison. Have a great rest of the week.